didn't join us in the initial sessions, we were explaining what planetary well-being actually is. It was kind of an impulse from top down in 2017, where our former rector, Jaume Casals, said this would be a good idea to start top down, having an idea how to transform the university to be able to respond to the challenges of the 21st century, not to leave the university in a way aside, when it just kind of follows the developments that are happening in the real world. So it was a framework that was established and under the name of Planetary Wellbeing, of saying we're going to transform the university as an organization to be sustainable, as a research institution, so that the research focuses on the new challenges, but also in terms of teaching, to challenge and to change the teaching involved. One of the things that we did for research is kind of envisaged some particular amount of funds, not extraordinarily large, but sufficient to kind of spur and support the research that already exists, and to interconnect the researchers from different disciplines to start working together, to say, here are some additional funds where you can connect your outcomes from your respective fields and create new knowledge. So that was basically the idea. We wanted to tackle specifically the lack of interdisciplinary research. We wanted to be this interconnecting factor between the professors and researchers of different institutions in the UPF group. So if you're talking law, if you're talking economics, you're talking medicine, biology, we wanted them to start working together and think in terms of a system. But we also wanted to kind of support the communication and dissemination activities, because those are the ones that actually have the least funds at the end of the day. So organizing a workshop is beautiful, organizing a conference is wonderful, but there are never funds for that, right? So you are always kind of depending on external funding and trying to get lucky to say maybe some of those funds can be used for dissemination. Well, actually the seed funding addresses dissemination and communication activities in one of its categories. So it's a separate category where you can present your project and funds are being given to you to help you. What we're trying to do is also to learn at the leadership level. So seeing what kind of applications come in makes you know your researchers, makes you be aware of the groups that you didn't know about before. So all of a sudden you have this whole pool of people who are working on similar topics than you that you had no idea about because you didn't know the institution as a whole. So it helped us a lot, the 3 calls of actually knowing who is working on sustainability and planetary well-being. We're not going to go through all of them. This is basically just to illustrate what we've been working on, but it really goes from biology to general topic of climate change, to specific conferences and workshops, to some projects that have already been in place but lacked some funding for the dissemination part, or project that wanted to start searching for funding, but they didn't have the funding to develop the initial proposal. There was a lot of it. In the first call, we had a budget of almost 150,000 euros. We had 33 applications. We could fund 16. Okay, we gave 3 grants to PhD students, 3 to researchers, 6 to different research projects, and then 4 for organization of those workshops and conferences. A similar thing happened the second year, despite the fact that we were dealing already with COVID, which I'm very glad that we still got 38 applications, even more than before. We gave 7 grants to PhD students, 4 to postdoctoral researchers, because we kind of separated the category in that year. 5 to general research projects, and 5 to workshops and conferences. Once again, some of those projects were existing already before. They just needed additional funding for some particular activities. Some of them were created from scratch, which we're really happy about because they started participating. And one important thing that I didn't mention, for you to be able to apply for those funds, you need to have an interdisciplinary team. So you cannot apply just with people from your field. You actually need to interconnect with other people from other fields and other departments to be able to apply at all, to be eligible for the aid. The third and the last one, we have 2 colleagues that actually won one of those that are going to present, has just been basically decided upon in the last few months. And what I saw when I was noting the people who were applying for the funding is there's a change in the specificity of topic. Before it was sustainability in higher education, sustainability in elementary school, sustainability in, I don't know, geology. Now it's sustainability, but it says we want to analyze IPCC reports. It goes very much more in depth. So now there are very more focused projects. So we're going somewhere. It's not just this general notion of we're going to know sustainability, but there are specific problems that are being addressed. From my side, before I leave the floor to my colleagues, is what I did with these funds is, in the scope of my ESCOM project that was funded by Marie Curie funds by the European Union, I wanted to create a forum when people, professionals, high-level professionals from the side of policy coherence for sustainability, specifically in law and in economics, could sit down and talk. I wanted to create a yearly forum that kind of has this reputation of we come, we discuss, and we publish a book, publish a paper, bring forward the knowledge that we don't have time to stop and discuss during the year. And it actually worked. The first year we had 3 thematic days that were pretty general: corporate law and sustainability, sustainable public procurement, and then higher education and sustainability, the change that is supposed to happen. Part of that third part was also the cooperation with Planetary Wellbeing, because kind of my project and Planetary Wellbeing was created at the same time by coincidence. Second one was this year, we also had to hold it online due to the COVID situation, but we already tackled sustainability and competition law. Then we went to the consumer policy and say how to green the consumer protection and sustainable finance. If you're interested in the speakers that were present, because we had commissioner riders, etc., pretty high level people from the field, basically the leaders from the field present, all of the presentations can be found at the YouTube channel of Pompeu Fabra University. Every single one of the sessions that has been made in the first and the second edition is available online, okay? So not to bore you further, that from my side is basically everything. So now I'm gonna leave the floor to my colleagues. We're still waiting for the last colleague to join. So Selene, you want to go first, or Mercedes and Laura? Preferences. Okay. Leaving the floor to my colleagues. Thank you.
Our presentation is in now everybody can hear me as well.
Yes,
yes.
Okay.
So thank you, Lela, for this presentation. I think it is amusing, not boring at all. It's a great initiative. We are very happy to have a project. Actually, I participate in 2 of the projects. I'll see how I manage, but have a project in this last call. We presented this project on food sustainability and education. You'll see it's a very multidisciplinary team. So with that, we certainly complied. And we're going to present the idea. Since we're just starting, it was given this last July, so we're just starting to work on it. The main idea is that we want to analyze the state of the art of food sustainability education in primary, secondary schools in Catalonia. So we'll focus in Catalonia, despite our aims are also to internationalize later on the project, and we'll use the seed funds as well to do that. So how do I skip?
If you want, I can change it for you, or we can try to do it.
Pass them for you, or do you want to sit down here? Or I can pass them for you.
As you. Okay.
Perfect. It's going to be easy.
I can do this. From this water. Okay, so the team, the research team, we are including in the team, we have professors from the Department of Economics and Business, Professor Sergi Jimenez Martin and Antonio Ladron de Guevara, who would have loved to be here but are teaching at the same moment. They are the principal investigators of this team, as they should be from the UPF itself. So they are from the Economics and Business Department and part of the Health Economics Research Group, as well as, well, Antonio is from the Business Analytics Research Group. Me, Mercedes Roca, Laura Batlle, and Pere Fullana are from ESI, from the International Studies School within the UPF group. And we are part of the Research in International Studies and Economics group and the UNESCO chair in life cycle and climate change. And finally, we have an external advisor, an international advisor from City University of London, from the Center of Food for Food Policy, with whom we are benchmarking, or we aim to benchmark what we're doing here with Catalan schools, with what's going on in England, which will be interesting, since certainly food habits are quite different, and whatever we consume and we perceive of our food is quite different. So it will be interesting to benchmark with him and to try to do cross national studies. Moreover, we are using the seed funds to have a research assistant that is actually in the last year of her studies in ESSI, and she will do, together with aiding us in our research, she will do a final degree project on food sustainability and education. So we'll try to have economies of scale as well in that. So I'll pass on the word to Laura to give you some overview of the domain that we are aiming to tackle and the previous research that we have done in ESSI on this topic. And then we'll go into the work packages. We can not really explain work done yet because we are just beginning, but our idea, and of course we are open to receiving ideas for further research. So.
Okay, thanks, Marcia. Well, first of all, thanks for inviting us. And well, I will give you an introduction first about what's sustainability, food sustainability, and what are the food challenges we are facing at the global scale. So first, the first challenge is malnutrition, which is expressed. I'm sorry, but I take out this.
Yeah, I told you, you can speak with us.
Thank you. So yeah, it's expressed in undernourishment, but also obesity and overweight. So worldwide, we have 700 million people undernourished worldwide. And at the same time, we have 650 million adults obese. The second challenge is the affordability and accessibility of healthy foods. So we can see that more than 3,000 million people worldwide cannot afford a healthy diet. And the third challenge with food systems is the environment. So agriculture is a resource-intensive activity. It uses 70% of the global fresh water, 30% of primary energy, and 35% of ice-free land. And not just agriculture, but the whole food system from production to consumer, it contributes to climate change. So it's calculated, it's estimated that 34% of the anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions come from the food systems. So it's a big impact. Moreover, food demand will increase by 2050 because of the ongoing population growth. So here, the big challenge worldwide, globally, is how we are going to feed the people without threatening more the environment and making sure that food is affordable, accessible, healthy food. It's affordable and accessible, and it nurtures us. Nurtures. So how we can find this? So through sustainable food systems. So as it is defined by the FAO from the United Nations, food systems, sustainable food systems should deliver food security and nutrition for all, but also not compromise to future generations. So actually it should take three ways the sustainability, right? The economic, so it's profitable, the social, so it benefits society, and environmental sustainability, which means positive or neutral environmental impact. So because of this importance of having sustainable food systems, in the recent years, many initiatives have appeared that works towards achieving sustainable food systems. At the global level, in autumn 2021, this year, United Nations has just launched the Food Systems Summit that goes towards towards sustainable food systems. At the European level, in 2020, it was published the From Farm to Fork strategy within the Green Deal. And the last one more at the local, at the city level, there is the Mélon Urban Food Policy Pact, which what wants to achieve is sustainable urban food systems. This was signed in 2015, and it was signed by 100 cities. Nowadays, it's about more than 200 cities. They meet every year, and this year, luckily, we had it in Barcelona in October. So we had this global forum, which was focusing on food and climate emergency. And at the same time, because of this global forum, also Barcelona was announced or declared like the world sustainable food capital. So during the whole year, there has been events, initiatives that relates to food sustainability. Regarding previous research we have done, I would like to highlight two projects that one is finished last year and one is going on. It's from the UNESCO Chair in Life Cycle and Climate Change at ESTI, co-coordinated with the University of Cantabria and University of Lleida, and both financed by the Spanish government. And the idea is to assess the environmental, socioeconomic and nutritional impacts of food production and consumption and find strategies to improve the sustainability. So from this research, we have published a lot, actually more than, for sure, 25 scientific articles in scientific journals. And I would like to highlight one, which, since we are talking about schools, so because in 2020, the municipality of Barcelona launched the initiative to change current meals in public schools towards more plant-based meals. So we wanted just to explore which will be the benefit, the environmental benefit of these changes. So we checked several environmental impacts and the nutritional part also compared to the current menus, and the results were much better. I'm not going through it, but just that we have this paper published on that. And briefly also, I would like to introduce two previous very recent activities we've been involved at ST. One was in June 2021, youth were presenting the manifesto that it was coming from the initiative of Youth for the Climate Emergency. And that was a result of a research work that these youth did in their schools during 3 months from February to May. There were 16 schools and there were 5 topics. One was food and climate change. And I was lucky, I was the mentor of these 3 teams, and they had to select their research question. They had to develop their methodology, discuss results and show it. And from all these results, they made the manifesto. And I'm glad also that during this global forum in October in Barcelona, one of these groups from the food and climate change topic, they could present at the inauguration, they could present their results and discuss with the mayor of Barcelona what is sustainable food and diets and etc. And last, also in October, during these weeks, there were a lot of events on food sustainability. And we did a workshop on people could estimate their carbon footprint of their food consumption habits. And now it's the floor for Marcel. Thank you.
So what are we to do after all this work that's already been done in the chair? Well, discussing with Laura on her, this is PhD research done by Laura mostly. We have collaborated, but discussing on the results of her research. Well, we were just thinking we are what we eat, but certainly we also are what we learn. And we really need to tackle how are our kids taught the importance of food, the impacts of food, the many derivations, the derived effects of what we eat and how we eat. So just aiming to tackle that. The objectives of the research that we envisioned for the Planetary Wellbeing initiative was analyzing the state of the art of what's going on in our education, primary and secondary Catalan schools. So the idea is that we want to analyze the present situation. What are the policies that are being implemented? What's in the regular curricula of schools? What are our kids learning regarding food and its impacts? We want to identify priorities and required actions that should be taken to improve food sustainability education, and compile, disseminate, and if possible, create materials to raise awareness, to disseminate good practices and promote the integration of food sustainability in education. So we design work packages for the proposal, and I'm just simply going to explain what the work packages are that we are starting to work on. So first work package, of course, we need to analyze what the curricula, regulatory framework and policies are on food sustainability in Catalonia. So we're already digging into what the decrees, the law says regarding what must be learned in primary and secondary schools regarding food sustainability, if anything. I have to say very little that is at least regulated. Maybe some schools, and certainly some schools have placed a lot of attention on that, but we want to see what's required and see whether these requirements should change. So the first step should certainly be identify what's going on, try to also identify what good initiatives there are, voluntary initiative from schools there are in Catalonia, and try to somehow do an inventory of these. We want to act also as a networking agent amongst these initiatives. So with this inventory, we'll probably, well, we will aim to organize an online forum so that there is talks between the initiatives and we can learn from them as well. And the ultimate aim of this analysis will be a survey. We would like to survey schools. First, we'll do some interviews for sure to get deeper into the topic, but survey schools and possibly students about their levels of awareness, knowledge, and interest in food sustainability and its incorporation in the education system. We'll, in the second work package, diagnose the required changes. So identifying what's covered and what's not covered. In the curricula, we will want to put forward what changes we envisage should occur in the educational system for this to be covered. Establishing a prioritization of what concepts, what competencies and objectives there should be covered in primary and secondary education in Catalonia. Third work package will be developing and compiling resources. So with the learnings of the first and second work packages, we are already identifying there's plenty of resources, but they are scattered all over. Resources to raise awareness, to enhance curiosity, to encourage information search, and develop understanding and critical thinking. So very much aligned with Evolució, by the way, resources that are interesting, but they are scattered all over. So we would like to compile these and also make them available, to help making them available if necessary, also developing assessment tools so that schools can themselves diagnose what's the status of their degree of incorporation of food sustainability competencies in their own schools. Finally, of course, an aim of the seed funding is disseminating and giving continuity to this research. So we aim to share the results publicly with any organizations that we have been working with the schools that we'll certainly be working with in the rest of the work packages, and also publicly. We aim to publish academic articles on this topic, and also with the collaboration of our partner in London, possibly develop cross-national studies, and why not aim to apply to research called international research calls to do other cross-national studies. And who knows, maybe within the EUTOPIA network, we find other partners to do other cross-national studies. So welcome to receive ideas or willingness to explore collaboration. In the end, our aim is to raise awareness, to enhance critical thinking regarding the relevance of education as a trigger of the urgent required social change towards sustainable food systems and consumption habits, to help promoting a food consumption transformation grounded on awareness of the younger generations by means of the education.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, actually, to both of you. I just wanted to have a comment, actually, for all of you. A question. How many of us actually know what sustainable food is? Hands up. I'm having it down, by the way, if you've noticed. What I'm trying to say is something is that we're taught that it's healthy for us. Something is that we're taught that it's healthy for us and healthy for the planet. Something is healthy for the planet, but not that healthy for us. And what do I mean by that? It's processed vegan food. So I guess the sustainable system is kind of the interaction of all three when all of us are healthy. So that's basically bringing back to the notion of saying what planetary well-being is. It's the well-being of human, non-human animals, but the planet as a whole, so that it kind of continues supporting us. Why do I think it's very important that this project tackles youth is because how much of our food habits are basically based on cultural predispositions? I don't know, 90% of my food habits are based on my cultural predisposition, and I moved countries several times, but I still eat the way I was eating at home when I live somewhere else. But I'm trying to say to you, tackling it at the first step where you explain what is good for the kids and what is good for the planet is, I think, the only way forward. Because yes, we will make more conscious choices as adults, but the kids are the ones who are kind of the generators of change. They're really the agents of change inside their families too. So when the kids start deciding that they're buying this and not that, usually the parents more or less go with it. Yeah, if they're not feeding themselves with that, at least they're feeding their kids with that. So thank you. It's a wonderful initiative. I'm really happy to have you on board. Selin, are you ready? So now we have a completely different project from a different field, which makes me very happy. It's yes. With the mic, it's better. We're going for it. Don't worry. Sorry, I'm just gonna try.
Hello. Oh.
Hello, welcome.
My name is Nate. I'm the student rep from the University of Ljubljana. First of all, thank you for this wonderful presentation. I was just wondering, since you spoke about promoting sustainable food and knowledge about it to younger generation,
Okay.
have you thought about maybe reaching out to public schools or kindergartens, or basically the educational system, but like from ages 4 to 10, maybe?
Okay. Yeah.
We are aiming to analyze what's tackled in primary school. So I guess these ages we will cover. And
you can ask
so-
for
so-
a
so-
rephrasing of the question. Huh?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't-
So yes, the answer is yes. Yes, we are interested in knowing what little kids learn in schools, what practices go on in schools, also in the refectories, what they're given for food and the curricula themselves. So, I don't know if that answers your question. Did I not get it right? Sorry.
No, I mean, you answered, maybe just to add on, but what about more practical approaches? Like, I don't know, maybe if you've got students involved that are studying this subject or something connected to the subject, so that they could visit elementary schools or have like events throughout elementary schools, just to promote, okay, kids, we know you like McDonald's, but there's a way more healthier option for you and for the planet, and something along these lines.
I think that's thinking about a further step that probably
yeah,
should
yeah.
occur within the school. So we are researching the state of the art, what's going on. We certainly need to know that before entering specific actions on specific schools. So the idea is knowing what regulation forces schools to teach in the curricula, and what they're doing, the practices that are going on. And
Exactly.
from there, of course, new initiatives may emerge, but that won't be that much on us researchers, but on schools. And we are aiming to just give availability to, or provide the resources to do that. If
Okay.
that answers.
Yeah,
your
yeah. Thank you.
Because here is something that I would add too. It's this discrepancy that we usually see in saying, fine, we're going to teach you something in curriculum, but then you're going to go down and have your lunch, and I'm going to offer to you every possible unsustainable option there is in this world. We've been fighting about this also at the university, and we reached kind of an agreement, and we had Menu for the Planet, and we're working on it. But it's frankly saying leading by example. So that is sometimes where we fail, not just elementary schools or secondary schools, but universities too. So those two developments kind of need to go hand in hand, but it's not forcing them of saying, you can only eat this, please don't eat McDonald's, for example, or whatever. But it's saying, look, the same way through those right now at COP, when you went to have lunch, you had your options. It doesn't mean your options were all taken away. You always had one or two meat options to eat, okay? But every single time, whatever you were choosing, you had your carbon footprint next to it. So you're not gonna force me, yeah, but you're for sure gonna inform me what I'm doing. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it for sure works way better than giving me just unhealthy options to choose from without information as to what I'm doing. So I guess it goes hand in hand of saying, yes, we're preaching, but we're offering too. If you don't mind, can I ask you from which faculty are you in Ljubljana?
I'm from the Faculty of Sports.
Of sports, okay. Because I'm originally from Ljubljana too, that's why I'm asking. Any further questions? Also on Zoom, maybe, did we have anything in the chat? If not, you can also leave them for later on for discussions as we continue with the presentation. So I wanted to introduce Selen Unkolar, who has been working on labor and nature intersection, talking about worker rights through the protection of nature, which is a super innovative topic. And I'm really, really happy to have you here. So please, Selen, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Lela, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a PhD candidate in labor law at UPF, and I want to share my PhD dissertation with you today, in a nutshell, of course. My journey all began when I found some articles about relationship between labor law and environment in a law journal, in which my PhD dissertation supervisor, Çelo Çakardaki Dambien, too, has an article. As a person who loves nature, the more I read each article, the more I got connected with the theme. Most importantly, I realized that I could choose this topic as a PhD dissertation because each article was so deep, interesting, and also eye-opening. I was excited and very, very happy to finally find the thesis of my dreams because it combines neighbor and nature together. I contacted with my supervisor immediately, and thankfully she approved and supported me. Everything I read about my subject expanded my horizon, informed me more, motivated me, and got me more enthusiastic. Since the very first beginning, I knew that it would teach me so much in all aspects, not only about my dissertation topic, but about life, about nature, about all bigger things. And it really did, and it still continues to teach me, motivate me every day, and stimulate and amaze me too. Although my resources in terms of labor law are very limited, unfortunately, in terms of sociology, history, politics, economics, and philosophy, there are plenty of resources. They are so rich and diverse. In addition, due to the evolution of the pandemic and climate change, which is rather a crisis already, suddenly research, news, data, all increased tremendously, just like campaigns, protests, and exhibitions. Even it's hard to keep up sometimes, really. So they all make my thesis so rich, so colorful, and of course, interdisciplinary. Also, the pandemic has been like a living laboratory and field work for my thesis. While my hypotheses are being confirmed one by one, new solution offers are appearing each day. Increasing awareness and climate protests with the pandemic also make my topic more relevant, such that climate crisis is now more important and more visible in labor law and in law as a whole. Which is one of my aims as increasing the awareness related to the relationship between labor law and nature, and showing as many people as possible how they closely and interdependently interact with each other. Even though climate crisis may not be related with work at first sight, workplaces are actually part of nature, just like this whole, our houses and everything. When we work inside or outside of our workplaces, we always interact with nature. We are exposed to heat, cold, different weather conditions, together with pollution and toxic substances. Our work transportation and production processes are always intertwined with nature and have serious impacts on nature as well. Therefore, increasing separation and exploitation of labor and nature since the first industrial revolution cause both the violation of workers' rights and ecological harm. So what is my thesis about in a nutshell? Yes, in my PhD thesis, I offer ecological regulation and organizing based on the radical changes in production, participation, and collective action at work for the urgent need to protect workers. And which is basically all of us, or most of us, as workers in the general whole sense. My main goal is to prove that efficient protection and enforcement of workers' rights can only be achieved by nature-friendly labor law and trade unions in a warming world. Accordingly, my thesis has two pillars. As the first pillar, climate crisis has unprecedented and irreversible consequences on our planet. As the second pillar, workers' rights are generally regulated under labor codes, which cover working conditions, occupational health and safety, and collective bargaining. In this respect, under the first chapter, I argue that labor and nature should not be considered as separate or contradictory. Ecological degradation deeply affects workers' health and safety and fair working conditions. Also, it is through decent work that workers and employers contact with nature in a sustainable manner. Under the second chapter, I analyze that although it aims to protect worker as the weak part of the hierarchical employment relationship, labor law has productivity, human supremacy, and masculine bias. So it urgently needs an ecological and feminist perspective with ecological regulation like working time reduction. So far I found out that the more labor law becomes green friendly, the best safeguards it will provide for workers. And under my last chapter, I will examine that trade unions have a vital role in ecological organizing with a nature-friendly agenda. In this regard, climate strikes provide one of the best practices as an antidote to the breach of workers' rights. Besides its novelty and originality, my research topic has a huge potential for creative discussion, new analysis, and even mobilization by enriching the literature in academia and increasing public awareness and action more. It has the capacity to contribute and inspire many campaigns, workshops, research projects, reports, and more good practices, and most importantly, in collaboration with trade unions, NGOs, think tanks, and social movements. Having a unique and urgent theme in touch with so many disciplines and both individual and collective dimensions of labor law, I believe that my dissertation will put forward a strong, innovative, and comprehensive impact by covering short-term and long-term necessities to enhance the visibility and possibility of alternative solutions as well. Despite there is still time for its defense and complete outcomes, I can already feel and see that I'm on the right track. For the constant support and efforts, I would like to conclude my presentation by thanking to Planetary Wellbeing Initiative and the UPF. I'm really proud to be a part of this community and be rewarded with this Planetary Wellbeing grant. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Selene. It was very well deserved. Huh? Before I start again attacking with my questions, because I don't know how to stop, do you have questions maybe in the audience or somebody on Zoom? Because otherwise the lawyer and me is going to just jump on it. And you maybe want to jump first. No, not yet. There's something that really caught my attention and I never thought about it. And thank you for that, because now I have a whole bush of ideas in my head. This interrelationship between not just nature, but biology per se, because you went on gender, and how the labor law does not take into account almost nothing, the biological differences and the gender roles we have that are conditioned biologically, not by the society. And labor law seems to be completely indifferent to it. In terms of what I'm trying to say, it's we came so far that say that equality right now just means 50-50 men, 50 women, also in childcare, for instance. But we're not talking about equity, right? So we're not talking about how much of the biological needs, for instance, of a kid in a specific time and age relies more on mother, and then conversely relies more on father as they grow. None of that is inherent in the protection mechanisms that you actually have in labor law, which is something that I would want to go into. So if at a certain point, once you're done with this PhD completely, we can talk. But did you understand what I was saying? Like, it's very interesting to note how much how little of biological differences actually come into the labor protection or the organization of work. But we're kind of human animals, right? On the other side, there is a particular system and functions that biologically we fulfill that are not taken into account in our socials and legal systems, specifically work related, because you started talking also about the reduction of work time, etc., which is very biased also. So you told it's kind of informed by masculinity, and I don't mean it in any negative way, but I am saying that it's to a certain extent so informed by masculinity that it's counterproductive for the society as a whole. Not just saying in terms of feminist rights in general, but for the society as a whole. So thank you for that. Do we have a question now? Because I went on my rant. No? Okay. In any case, if you do, Selen provided her contact information on the first slide. If you don't mind just going on the first slide so that they can contact you. Just sharing it down there and they're going to see it. Loving the question there. Yes.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Tommy from CY Cergy Paris Université. I have read some articles from reliable or not reliable sources that Spain is experimenting the 4 days week work. Is it true? And do you think it's a good idea? What are the impact on the environment and the nature about this new policy or experiment? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. As far as I know, yes, Spain has a plan about implementing a 35 or 40 hours week. I think from next year, applying from next year, because I think they have really some plans in the government as well, and other political parties and trade unions also support it, but they want to include it in their political agenda for the next year, as far as I know. And yes, the working time reduction has important consequences, has important contributions to the ecological sustainability in various manners, actually. Firstly, there are substantial research about it, which really confirms that the less we work, the less we spend our resources like energy use or transportation, of course, based on fossil fuels, and of course based on high carbon energy use and transportation. The more we save, or the more we reduce our carbon emissions. There are many resources which I also include in my thesis as well. So firstly, in terms of energy use, we must reduce our energy use, and we must do it in a clean way, in a renewable way. Both work-related energy use and both private energy use is important in this way, because if we don't care about our energy use in our homes or in our hobbies, social life, of course, it does not reduce that much the carbon as well. But of course, the work-related energy use has a really huge amount, a huge contribution to the carbon emissions too. And second, our transportation to the work, or of course, again, private transportation. We need to, again, use low carbon transportation, non-fossil fuel transportation. So working time reduction can change it to, if we use low carbon transportation to work in less hours and in our private life as well. And also working time reduction can lead the change in our lifestyles, habits as well, with low carbon lifestyle, low carbon social activities, and of course this leads to naturally the mentality change as well. So the more work becomes not at the center of our lives, and not that much overwork and that much extreme work becomes the normal in our lives, the less that becomes the norm, the more we can contribute to ecological sustainability, because we can be more aware, we can change our lifestyles, we can focus on our planet as well, and our other necessities. So it's really important.
Can I just have a sub question for a What about the productivity side? Because this is kind of the discussion that we then have, right? Yes, we're kind into the nature, but then the economists come and the system the way it is and the GDP growth and etc. Have you read any research as regards to what happens to the productivity in general once you do lower the working time, right?
Yes. There are, of course, again, many researches which proves that working time reduction does not necessarily reduce productivity. It's not an automatical thing. We reduce
And
our
probably
working
not to
time.
the same extent, I would say. So if you reduce 1
course.
hour out of 8, it's not that you're going to be less productive in that particular
course.
percentage. Okay.
Of course. It doesn't need to necessarily reduce our productivity. It depends on our work organization. It depends on the organizational culture, actually, because there are so many companies, there are so many examples which they work 5 hours or 6 hours per day right now in all over the world, and I include them also in my thesis too. And they are really productive. They increase their revenues, profits, and they are better in worker well-being, in planetary well-being, and employers are really satisfied and content with it too. So it really depends on the organizational culture, the mentality of the worker, the preferences of the employer, and productivism is not good for our planet. I think it's the productivity-based or profit-based approach really kills our planet. But we don't have to lose productivity at all with reducing our working time. We can still keep it because we will have more motivation, we will have more health, more safety, and everything, so we can actually be more productive.
Also, I think make sure that a good salary. Productivity goes with salary. So if we keep 4 days salary, I think it's important. And I was working in the Netherlands, and it's a common thing just to work 4 days per week. And that's not, I mean, they, in the first interview, do you want to work 4 or 5 days? And you say 4 days, and actually almost all the people were just working 4 days. But you get a good salary, you are motivated, you have good, so that's, I think, basics. Also, another thing about the carbon emissions, because it's my topic, I need to say something about it. We need to be careful because, yeah, if we don't go to work, we might not increase our emissions. But if we go every weekend to Honolulu or whatever, we will. So we sometimes say, okay, we are not spending this, but we will. So be careful with this. Yeah, I think it's an interesting topic to check also if we work less, if we emit less. That's a very nice job.
Thank you. They are really important, of course.
We have another question.
I would also want to ask something later.
Okay, sorry. We didn't want to take your turn. Sorry, you're next. Okay.
Sorry. Okay. Thank you. I'm Lisa from the VUB, also a student representative in EUTOPIA. I was wondering if I'm from the Netherlands, so I have some experience with this as well. I really particularly liked when you said in the ecological marches and the workers' marches, there's a lot of overlap and you can kind of combine strengths and be there together. But what I've also seen in the conversation around ecology and sustainability is that there is this maybe subconscious kind of divide and conquer going on between the people that are very pro-sustainability and the workers. So you have this thing of gray jobs disappearing, and then the European Commission maybe goes like, ah, yeah, but magically the people that lose their jobs in this field of transportation maybe will be able to install solar panels, and maybe that will just happen. And then it's like the people that drive those trucks aren't so sure about that, and then they kind of have an which is very logical to not be so sure about that, and then they have a very averse reaction to the cause of sustainability, because it feels like a threat to their way of life and their rights to work. So how would you, have you seen already, or how would you suggest that you can kind of flip the conversation, that you focus on labor laws without alienating a lot of the labor force actually in this story of sustainability?
Yes, thank you so much. Actually, yes, unfortunately, and in some aspects it's true as well. There is there is a contradiction between, yes, jobs, protecting jobs, creating jobs, and ecological environmental sustainability. And yes, in some aspects, in some areas, it can be and it will be hard to keep some jobs or substitute them with more green jobs, climate jobs also. It's an increasing topic as well. But yes, I hope that it will be better, of course, for the workers. It won't make them unemployed, or it won't violate their rights at the future. But I think it's really important to provide and create that jobs before losing them, before destroying some types of, for example, fossil fuel jobs or other ecologically destructible, ecologically harmful jobs. It's first important to create a substitution for workers. And actually, I think it's a really matter. Yeah, it needs to be urgent in some way, but it's a bit a matter of time too. The more companies, the more employers, organizations, governments have more initiatives about it, the more they are more determined and really want to do to change it, the more quickly we can actually provide it. I believe that, but it's really, yes, depends on the governments as well. The trade unions are important in this way too, although, yes, in some areas, in some matters, maybe they lose strength too. They are really urgent, they are really important in this issue, in ecological sustainability issue.
I just want to comment, like, I think it's just a thing of a transition, right? It's very difficult to positively and optimistically communicate transition. There's a gap that's going to happen in between. We can maneuver it well, and the gap is little. We can maneuver it badly, and the gap between the employment is going to be big. But transition needs to occur. My only concern here is that we all know what needs to happen specifically with the fossil fuel industry, and it's being postponed due to this exact fear so long that it will be a disruption. It could have been a transformation and transition, but right now we're well on track for a disruption. And that's where the problems are going to arise. And this creation of new jobs in advance is something that the Commission is trying to do. The only problem is that the circular economy jobs are being advertised as substitutes, but they're usually low-level jobs. And highly skilled workers escape that exit. And that's not communicated correctly neither. So here the problem is of objective communication and a plan of transition that is basically being so postponed that there's no other choice than disruption. So I think that's where the challenge at the end of the day actually lies, of waiting for so long that the plan that we're carrying out is Z and not the A or the B, but an escape that just needs to happen and then market will figure out, not really. So that would be my 2 cents on that.
Do you have an idea of, like, obviously why it's been postponed, because there isn't the political will, et cetera, but do you think that were the sustainability cause, let's say, to focus more on immediately creating those green jobs as one of their first demands, would that make a difference? Would that make it go faster, or what can we do?
We need to understand that we're dealing with 2 things. One, the need and the wish for the transition, and second, the profitability of the current system. Who do you think wins?
Of course, yes.
That's what we're dealing with right now. So that's very difficult because it's going to be profitable in its own way, the system that we're creating, but most definitely in terms of GDP and profit rise of every single quarter. Because that was the one that was proven to be unsustainable, and that one needs to go, and nobody wants to let that one go. So.
I'm not asking anymore because it was the topic I wanted.
Yeah, I already addressed it.
Yeah, so
Okay. Thank you for being patient. I didn't want to ignore you, honestly. Okay, so thank you very much, Selen. This was enjoyable. You have her contact details up there. Please stay in touch if you like the topic. And now we have the last presentation. Do we have the second presenter too, or she got stuck from? Okay, sorry. The mask, sweetie. I don't recognize. For me, it's like it might be her, but I'm not sure. And it doesn't help, no. Let me just help you with sharing your presentation if you don't mind. Wow. Because I have it prepared here. I just need to share it also with the Zoom ones so that nobody is left behind, okay? Here you go. Looking forward to hearing you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. My apologies for being late. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Well, my name is Marta Lopera Marmol, and alongside my colleague, Dr. Manuel Jimenez Morales, we have been working on a project titled Green Shooting Sustainable Culture. Before we start, I would like to thank Dr. Lela Mélon and as well as the Planetary Wellbeing Committee for having us here today and obviously giving us a chance with the grant to do some research on it. Well, let's dive right in it, shall we? So, as its title indicates, the project tries to analyze all the sustainable practices ranging from pre-production, production, post-production to promoting of an audiovisual product, and what do we understand as an audiovisual product could be from documentaries to television, including those of streaming platforms, films, advertising, and festivals. So when we are talking about green shooting, we're talking about media sustainability. So what is media sustainability? Well, it's the ecological, social, and economic impact that the audiovisual field is having on our planet. I put a video that I think is way more explanatory than I will ever be. So hopefully it's good.
The media industry is like an invasive species. It changes culture. We change the ecosystems wherever we go, with billions of dollars funding the materials, energy, and sets constructed just to be blown up. The media industry colonizes local ecosystems and molds them to our needs. We change mindsets wherever we go, vitalizing dreams of fame and defining the face of success. We create lasting social change within the local ecosystem, just like an invasive species. However, invasive species aren't always unwanted. Sometimes they can actually be beneficial. With the power to change culture, we can replenish the ecosystems wherever we go. With billions of dollars funding sustainable materials, energy, and rapid response, the media industry has a real opportunity to help restore ecosystems. We can change mindsets wherever we go. Normalizing conversations around equity and respecting those who protect our home, we can create lasting social change. With the great powers of storytelling comes the great responsibility to create the future we want to see. We're up against the existential threat that can only be solved with a change in culture. And we change culture. The media industry is like an
Look at it. Okay, thanks. So what we are interested in seeing is what's happening both on and off screen. In other words, is there any minority represented on the crew? Is a minority represented on the screen? Are our characters talking about ecological impact? Are we treating the movies ecologically friendly behind the scenes? We have seen many examples in current television series, in current films, where we're still making such a sad waste, sexist jokes, and that is something that we wanted to analyze, see the current state of our media. We have been studying in this theoretical framework, and we discovered a terminology taken by the BAFTA Award, which is called planet placement. And planet placement is a terminology that tries to basically introduce sustainability either through action or through discourse. To simplify it, you imagine a character and he's a kid and he's going to a science fair, and he has his project is about climate change, and he explains it to her mom. us as an audience would get information about climate change through his discourse. Now, through action, it would be very different. So we have a character and he's going for a coffee. And instead of ordering normally, he would give his reusable cup without saying a word. Now, that is something we would explore on screen, something that we would see on screen. Now, what happens behind the screens, right? That's also something that we are very interested in. Now, when studying that, we have found out that there's this new role in film. It's called ecosystem, in which basically is a physical person that makes sure that in the sets, everything is sustainably friendly, from the script to the, makeup, to clothing, to the food, to the carpool, to the hotels we're doing. And that's something that we want to see how can be implemented in the educational plans of film studies, advertising studies, journalism studies, and all those related on communication. And this is something that we have undertaken under the umbrella of the terminology green shooting, but it's important to say that others have been saying it through the umbrella of green production. Even though it says the word green, we understand sustainability under the three pillars, and we would even want to include another one, which would be culture, as we saw in the video. Now, I pass it to you.
Thank you very much, Marta. I would like to explain, to tell you the objectives of this project. Marta explained the main reason why we started to explore this field of green shooting. And actually, we realized that the media industry is a very common industry. And when I say common, I mean, it's a very shared industry. There is this concept of prosumers. I don't know if you're familiar with the terms, but it is this contraction between producers and consumers, and we are all part of that, and we all share products that we have recorded, short, filmed, whatever, with other people, and we are at the same time both parts of the chain of transmission. So we were asking ourselves, what is the impact on the prosumers in terms of the personal consumption of media production, but to get to that point, we had to start by the standard industry. So we had to go to the big industry of production. There are some studies in other countries, some studies and some policies that were reference for us, especially you mentioned BAFTA, and you'll see that the UK for us has been a reference. But what we wanted to do is explore the proximity of these policies, so explore a bit the territory, and we started by Catalonia. For the people who is not from Spain, you know that Catalonia has a big industry of film and media production. Probably the biggest one in Spain is in Madrid, but at the same time, Catalonia has a public television, some private broadcast networks, a lot of companies, and it's probably in Spain the focus of experimental and alternative productions. So it is a very active focus of production, and the objective was analyzing the current, as you can see in the slides, the current Catalan audiovisual system in terms of sustainability. So ask ourselves, what were the policies applied to the production companies? What were the aids, the financial aids and funds for these productions? How the festivals promoted the sustainable goals among the companies, etc., etc. So one of the questions was getting to know which companies were applying that and how the full chain of sustainable activities were performed in this field. Actually, Marta mentioned part of the stages of this chain, the pre-production. So let's say the conception of the production, the screenwriting, the casting, all the processes to prepare a full production, then the production stage. Afterwards, the post-production, which can be quite unsustainable process with all the digital effects, the consumption of electricity, etc. And it is included in this stage all the processes of distribution of media and exhibition of them, which are quite expensive and quite unsustainable in yeah, exactly. And the third element, the third objective was exploring the best methodologies to undertake this challenge. So what we wanted to do was also proposing new ideas, not just to political institutions in order to offer this kind of funds promoting sustainable productions, etc., but also trying to educate on that, offer some literacy on sustainable production. What are the outcomes of this project? So basically, we organized some sustainable conversations, so dialogues with some experts to raise awareness about the subject, but also to discuss and find solutions about this subject. We invited to this sustainable conversation 3 experts. The first one was Emily O'Brien from Earth Angel, an agency devoted to sustainability in the film and media field. The second one was Steve Smith. Steve Smith is the founder of a production company called Production Zero, a very committed production company in the UK to produce films around sustainability, but also made from the sustainable point of view. So their methodology is applying this kind of principles of sustainability. And the third one was Roger Canelamas. Roger Canelamas is a Catalan professional working in the UK, precisely in Albert, which is the section in BAFTA. BAFTA is like the Film and Media Academy in the UK. They have a division just for this this field. And actually, Steve Smith, who came before Roger Canelamas, is an eco manager in BAFTA. So it's an expert, and it's part of the advisory board of BAFTA in order to help to promote this kind of policies. We organized this 3 conversations. In all of them where people from production companies, from educational institutions, from policy institutions, trying to construct new ways to produce here in Catalonia. And I must say, we must say it was very productive event. Well, they were 3 very productive events, because after that, many suggestions were raised from the people who came to the sustainable conversations. We also organized an educational workshop with Chus Lopez. Chus Lopez is a professor in Universidad de Oliva. He did this workshop with students from UPF and other students of film and media studies. Other students were invited just to learn how to be a bit more engaged with the sustainable principles of film and media production. Then we have published 1 article in a peer-to-peer review. We are preparing 2 more articles. We have been invited to write a couple of chapters in a book. We are closing at this moment the project. In December, we'll reach the end of the project with a final event. And the two next steps will be applying to a Horizon project grant. We've built a consortium around this project, and we were called, in fact, we received a proposal to direct a documentary on the European Climate Assembly here in Spain. So we applied to the grant to produce the film. It seems they are very interested on that. And if everything goes as we expect, we will produce in the next year a documentary film around the European climate change here in Spain. And that's all. I would like to thank you for this amazing initiative, especially to Lela, who is I would say the soul of this project, and thanks to her energy, we are doing all that, and it's amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Manuel. This was really, really enjoyable. Now that I heard more about your project beyond just the application, like I'm jumping on board whenever you need me. This is really cool. What I wanted to say to you before we go to questions, this is something that I keep on noticing, and not just in today's presentation. What we're doing right now, even if the research is really deep, it's the shock therapy of awareness raising. Because, for instance, in general, I'm a fan of a good movie. I am not obsessed with TV. I find it very noisy, personal affection, but I see the way it impacts my kid. And what she was speaking about, the little details of culture informing and changing, of you putting a reusable cup, that is everything I want to see. And it's just a small example, but understanding that the way we identify with the characters in everything we see is going to stay somewhere here until it becomes our function. The more we see it, the less acceptable something against that is, unless that would be a thing that's really against our values. But in general, if it's value enhancing, usually we just eat it up. That's the point of media, right? So you're doing extremely good, and thank you for that, because I hope that next time when I put on the TV, there are actually something educational on it for the little one. Let's go to questions. Do you have questions, comments, congratulations for them, whatever you want? Anything? Yes. We have here in the first line, and then there in the back, please.
Just general. Yeah, what you were saying, Lela, also about the smoking, right? Like many years ago, now when you see a movie of 30 years ago and it was just normal, and now you're like, what? So I hope that it will be the same with sustainability in the future. Wait. So I'm not sure if you could in the end assess something about sustainability with numbers from your study, from your project. Could you make some numbers, or it was more like about conversations and see how you could be improved? And if yes, how you are going to do it? Because, well, it would be nice to be involved in case.
The measurement of impact, you mean, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Some quantification of what was figured out. Okay.
Well, we haven't really focused on data because we haven't been in a set doing it, but there are already carbon calculating CO2 for film, specifically film or any audiovisual product. So it depends on each movie. It will create certain impact. There are companies that when it's very high, they try to compensate it because there are some policies put on by governments, which here still not there yet, even though it might be coming on the next few years. I don't know if you want to add something else.
Well, you answered it perfectly. We didn't focus on that, but this is part of our plans in the future, how the production companies implement all this kind of policies, apply this calculator, this carbon calculator, and we can get some data on that. This is part of what we want to do, especially in this new project. But at the same time, we have to keep in mind that the industry is very heterogeneous here. When we are talking about production, we are talking about big productions, maybe, yeah, and small, but I'm also referring to the genre. Depending on the genre, it changes completely. A fiction, obviously, is much more unsustainable than intense than a
It would be nice to
documentary.
see the but I'm seeing a lot of articles and interesting stuff and collaborative work. And
It would be fantastic.
We're all
Yeah.
stars, right? We're all like, I see, yeah.
Yeah, we would appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
This is how ideas are born. That's what I love about this, especially with sustainability.
Hi, I'm Lot from the University of Brussels, and it's not really a question directed to you, but more like a comment in general. I really think like that influencing with using media is very useful, and I think it could really work. But what I think is kind of a pity is that we are here in a Utopia session, and we're talking about sustainability and replacing cups with like reusable cups, and we're here literally with plastic bottles, and we all got hundreds of tote bags, and I am seeing hundreds of posters of Utopia around the city and around the university, and everyone went here by plane, and everyone is having a single bedroom in a 4-star hotel. So I was wondering how we could influence Utopia itself by becoming more green, because we are discussing so much about planetary well-being, but I think like we're missing the Utopia Week by sustainability as well.
Can I address that question first? Because I'm dealing with the event organization of trying to use my Incorporate Sustainability Conference as a disseminating factor and kind of influencing this thing. I've never organized events before in my life. So when I started it, I absolutely knew what I want to do. Making sure that I have an impact, an actual one, and making sure I avoid this. Not because of the image, because yes, of course, first you're worried about the image. The impact of this is probably lower than if we would be putting out the reusable bottles with the Utopia logo, if I'm completely honest, okay? Because you need to reuse everything you're looking at for it to actually have a lesser impact, yeah? So those corporate gifts are more or less greenwashing of saying you can reuse it, but are you really going to? The point here is what I'm trying to say, you need an organizational change at the same time as you're doing the substance change of activities that a specific public or private organization is underdoing. Being at a session which are majority informed with planetary well-being and having this access consumption is an oxymoron in itself. Yeah. How do you tackle it? First of all, the change is always going to happen because of a personal affinity of a person in charge. Let's not lie. You will have industrial strategies and you're going to have organizational strategies, but where does the change happen? Somebody noticing what's happening, that one person. So every single time when I'm speaking about this kind of change, or in general with students, it comes from inside of you. And there's no such a thing as somebody else will decide, or there's an organization, including governments, that are going to change. Here in the Utopia case, it's simply understanding our strategy of organizing an event was not sustainable, despite the fact that our aim was not maleficent. It was a good cause that we wanted. But it's a systemic change. That's why we're dealing with very similar questions in their project as we're dealing in hers, and they're completely unrelated. And we just did in media. It's the same fundamental understanding of saying, do you understand what you're doing and what the challenge is? Do you understand what the questions are? And third, do we understand what we can do about it? Okay, so it goes beyond 2 bags and water. The point is that we're not in the transition yet. We're speaking about that transition, and that's why we're late. So that would be my 2 cents. No? Yeah.
Well, actually, I think you perfectly answered this question. No, I did. I could add only that obviously we are in the transition, and we wanted to raise awareness here from this event. Now I'm talking from the point of view of the organization myself, although I was not involved, especially in the details, but. The questions like the one you ask are fantastic. This is the place to ask these questions.
This is where the change happens.
Exactly, and I'm sure for the next Utopia Week we are going to plan a bit better all that. we're gonna have this in mind, and we probably can change little by little the ways to do things around that. So thank you for
Comments like this actually spur the development of new strategies, because you're like, this cannot be a one time event that next time we change. The problem is we don't have a strategy in place of understanding how we want this. You have institutions, also the UPF, working on it. When you're sending out your researchers, where you're required to a certain distance, this kind of transport after a certain distance, blah, blah. But that's not enough, because also the people that are incoming, you have to have the same policies for them. So there's no strategy in place. And that's basically the next step that would be good on working, of understanding why, because that informs your further research outside of the organization, of saying, wow, we haven't got it figured out on that side. What can be done? So thank you for that from my side too. Anything else? Do we have another comment, question? If not, I want to thank you honestly for being here with us. It was a pleasure having you. If you've had any questions for the researchers, you had their contacts. If you want to find me on LinkedIn, Lela, Mélon, or on Twitter, I'm very welcome. You're very welcome to contact me. I'm very happy to talk to you. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your EUTOPIA week, despite the bad weather, and have the nice rest of the afternoon. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so
Thank you very much.